Leaving the hospital, it really does feel like you've reached the end of a long journey, doesn't it? But that very last step, the discharge, is actually one of the most important parts of getting back to full health. It's not just about walking out the front door. It's about making sure that road home is safe, smooth, and really sets you up for a full recovery.
So, the day is coming. You're getting ready to leave the hospital. And look, that moment is filled with so much relief, for sure. But let's be real, it can also bring a whole wave of questions and maybe a little bit of anxiety. Am I really ready for this? What's supposed to happen next? Well, don't worry. There is a whole process designed to answer exactly that.
The first thing to really get is that you are not going through this alone, not at all. A successful discharge is a total team effort. And this image really captures the heart of that team. You've got the healthcare professionals, your family, your carers, and right at the center of it all is you. You are the most important member of this team.
Okay, let's get into it. We've laid out a pretty clear roadmap for you here. First, we're going to talk about planning your departure and when that really begins. Then, we'll look at who makes up your discharge team. After that, we'll dive into the safe home assessment and what your actual plan looks like. We'll even give you a checklist for the day you go home. And finally, we'll cover what to do if things take an unexpected turn.
So let's jump right into part 1, planning your departure. Now, you might be a little surprised to find out that the conversation about you going home, it starts way, way earlier than the day you actually walk out that door.
And this is what it's all called: discharge planning. It's the official process of creating a plan that's personalized just for you. But the key thing here, the really interesting part, is the timing. This isn't some last-minute scramble. This process often kicks off on the very day you're admitted to the hospital. It's all about being proactive, not reactive.
So why put in all this effort so early on? Well, because good planning makes a huge difference. It makes sure you get the right care after you leave. It coordinates all the different services you might need, and, this is a big one, it seriously helps prevent you from having to come right back to the hospital unexpectedly. At the end of the day, it's all about making your recovery safer and a whole lot smoother. Okay, so who are the people actually making this plan happen? That brings us to our next section. Let's assemble your discharge team. You can think of them as your personal support crew, getting you ready for that journey home.
And it's a whole crew of people. You've got your doctors and nurses, of course, but you'll also have social workers who are amazing at connecting you with resources. And you'll have allied health pros like physiotherapists or occupational therapists. They all coordinate with community services to line things up. But I want you to look at that last point. The most critical members of this team, that's you, your family, and your carers. Your voice is genuinely the most important one in the room.
All right, now for the really practical stuff, the safe home assessment. Before you can leave, your team needs to answer a really basic but super important question. Is your home actually ready to support your recovery?
To figure that out, they'll often do something called a home hazard appraisal. Now, I know, it sounds super official, right? But really, it's just a common sense check to make sure your environment isn't going to accidentally get in the way of you getting better. So what exactly are they looking for?
They're looking at all the little things that can make a huge difference. Like, do your stairs have a solid handrail? Is the lighting bright enough so you can see where you're going? Are there any loose rugs you could trip over? What about the bathroom? Are there grab bars to help you feel steady? They'll even check if there's enough space for any equipment you might need, like a walker or a wheelchair.
But a safe home is about so much more than just the physical layout. The assessment also looks at your entire support network. Is there a carer at home who's willing and able to help out? Are there any financial concerns? Do you maybe need services like meal delivery or a little help with housekeeping? It's a whole picture view to make sure every single one of your needs is considered.
So once that assessment is done and a plan is in place, it all gets put down on paper, which brings us to Section 4, your plan in hand. Let's take a minute to demystify the most important document you're going to receive.
This is your discharge summary. And yeah, it can look like a lot of information, but it actually breaks down pretty logically. It'll clearly state your diagnosis and what was done in the hospital. It'll summarize your stay and list any follow-up actions. And this is super important. It details all your medications, your self-care instructions for things like diet or activity, and it lists all your upcoming appointments. Think of it as your personalized instruction manual for recovery.
Of course, a huge part of making that plan actually work is education. Because, right, you can't follow a plan you don't really understand. And I love how this image frames the conversation. It's all about empowerment. The nurse isn't just giving orders. They're sharing knowledge so that you can take control of your own health.
Your nurse is going to walk you through all the essentials. They'll make sure you get your condition, exactly how and when to take your meds, and how to care for any wounds. They'll also give you really important advice on what to eat and, maybe most critically, what warning signs to look out for. And here's the key: never, ever be afraid to ask questions until you feel 100% confident.
All right, the planning's done. You've got your summary, you're feeling confident. Now let's get to the really exciting part, the day you go home. We've got a final checklist here to make sure everything goes off without a hitch.
Let's just run through this one last time. It all starts with the official part. The doctor has to write the discharge orders. Then it's about you, gathering up all your belongings, getting any IVs removed. Then you'll get your take-home medications. This is the moment to double-check that you understand all the instructions and any restrictions on what you can eat or do. And, probably most important of all, make sure you walk out of there with a phone number to call if any questions or problems pop up. Now, sometimes the hospital might need your room before your ride is there to pick you up. If that happens, a lot of hospitals now have something called a transition lounge. It's not just a waiting room. It's a really comfortable, staffed area where nurses can keep an eye on you and make sure you're safe right up until the moment your car pulls up. It's actually a great system to keep things moving without ever making you feel rushed.
Okay, so we've walked through the ideal process, but what happens when things don't go exactly according to plan? Our final section is all about navigating those unexpected turns, and it's really important to know what your options are.
Once in a while, a patient might choose to leave before their doctor thinks they're ready. This is known as a discharge against medical advice, or DEMA for short. Let's be really clear about the difference. A standard discharge is planned, coordinated, and medically recommended. A DEMA is a patient's personal choice to leave early, and that choice can carry risks. As you can see, it also shifts the liability for what happens next from the hospital over to the patient.
Now, if you are ever in this situation, it is your right to leave. But the hospital has a duty to make absolutely sure you are making a fully informed decision. That means the staff must explain your condition, the specific risks of leaving early, and any other alternatives you might have. They'll then ask you to sign a form that just says, yes, I understand these risks. And all of this brings us back to the ultimate goal of a good discharge. It's summed up so perfectly by this quote, which describes something called the wellness and rehabilitation principle. The whole point of the process is to move from a state where people are doing things for you to a place where they are doing things with you, helping you get back your independence and your ability to care for yourself.
Because in the end, that is what this is all about. The road home is a partnership. It's a partnership between you and your healthcare team. So the final question I want to leave you with is this one. How will you be an active partner in your own healthcare journey? Because knowing your rights, asking questions, and being involved in the plan, that's the absolute best way to make sure your road home is a safe one.